mermaid.
That doesn't make us enemies.
I want to go ahead and I want to get to the next part of my stream. And that is my review for The Little Mermaid, the 2023 live action film. And again, for those that don't know, the general plot synopsis, it follows a young mermaid princess, Ariel, who makes a deal with a sea witch, in which she trades her beautiful voice for human legs so she can discover a whole world above the sea, above the ocean, and impress a prince. Before getting into my general thoughts on this film, this very controversial, infamous remake, adaptation, if you will, I do want to talk about just kind of my overall thoughts on the original 1989, Little Mermaid, and also Disney remakes in general. People don't know, The Little Mermaid and Who Framed Roger Rabbit are kind of credited for saving Disney. During the 1980s, not that they didn't make good movies during that time, underrated films. They were in serious financial struggle for their lives. And thanks to The Little Mermaid and Who Framed Roger Rabbit and the commercial and the critical success of those movies, it pretty much saved the company. And, of course, gave rise, in the case of Little Mermaid, gave rise to one of the greatest eras of Disney, which was the Renaissance period. From 1989 all the way, throughout the 90s, getting films like Beauty and the Beast and Aladdin and The Lion King, etc. Some amazing movies, films that I grew up on and many people of my generation grew up, but that people still watch, to this day, and are some of the most critically and commercially successful animated films, or just in general, just films ever. And, Little Mermaid, for me, watching that, I didn't see the theater. I wasn't even born yet. But, of course, I watched it on VHS and, on TV, of course. But I love that movie. Grew up on that film along with all those movies with Aladdin, Lion King, and Hercules and things. It was a great film. It was beautifully animated. The characters were so imaginative and had so much personality. It had one of the most iconic Disney villains ever. Introduced us to Ursula, Chad, who I love. Poor unfortunate souls, body language, like all that. It's like, wow, it's so great, And yeah, they had the sequels, and the TV show that came after that, which they had a prequel TV show, I believe, and then they had the sequel movie, Little Mermaid, I guess 2, right, with Ariel and Prince Eric's daughter, and you followed her and her adventures, and Ursula's sister. But then kind of pivoting into these remakes, Disney has now been leaning into these for so many years. For a very long time now, I guess over the past, decade and a half, really, where they've gotten to the point where now they're adapting a lot of the stuff from the 90s. And aside from a handful of those movies, Jungle Book, that's the only one for me personally. All people have said Cinderella. A lot of people, that's not really Disney Renaissance, though, but neither is Jungle Book. But, of a lot of the Disney remakes, Chad, the only one that I've really enjoyed, that I thought was as good, in some cases not better. In some cases better than the original movie was, Jungle Book. But other than that, all these movies to me have been so disappointing. And it's some of them have made a ton of money. There's no doubt, so they're not going to stop making them because everyone keeps seeing them. I get it. That's the business model. It's why would they stop doing something if it's shitty, if it makes $1.6 billion? But it's not interesting to me, especially where so many of these films, all the Renaissance era ones that they've remade, I don't think measure up to those original movies in any capacity. I just don't think they've done it. Certainly not Beauty and the Beast, definitely not Lion King, and definitely not Mulan. And so when they announced this one, Little Mermaid, I was like, well, of course, and the trailers for the movie, I thought were not, they just looked dull. They looked dull. I was already, had this mindset of I'm just kind of done with this whole thing. But you had all this hubbubaloo, all this controversy because of the casting of Halle Bailey, who is a black woman, and she is playing a character who was originally white. That got a lot of people upset. And it's just kind of I've been dreading the release of this movie just because of just the talk that inevitably is going to be around it, the controversy and everything else. And so I was just like, I don't really want to even see this movie now, because I'm going to end up being in the middle of it. But I finally saw the movie. Despite my misgivings, despite the fact that I'm tired of all these remakes, I was like, you know what? Give the movie a shot. I can't keep talking shit if I haven't seen shit. Don't talk shit if you haven't seen shit, chat. It's one of my mantras, if you will. And, getting into the film itself, although I think this film is not as terrible a remake as things like The Lion King or Mulan, or more recently Pinocchio, which was horrible, a horrendous adaptation. I still think it doesn't stand head and shoulders next to the original 1989 film, Little Mermaid, in any capacity. There's sadly, chat, there's so much that just feels just like a little off about it, or in some circumstances, just doesn't work at all. Listen, I'll tell you right now, to be positive at the very top, Halle Bailey, everyone was said she's black, she can't do it. I will say this, I think Halle Bailey is a terrific singer in this movie. I mean, this girl's got some pipes on her, chat. Whoo! And she does a very, very good job with her own cover of Part of Your World, right? One of the biggest songs from the original Little Mermaid. Her performance, I think, is also quite solid. Not spectacular, but that's, again, you're competing against a film that has had a 30+ year legacy and that is beloved. So you're always going to be compared to that original. All these people, right? But I think she does a really good job, especially compared to like a lot of remake protagonists of iconic characters. She's probably one of the better ones. They definitely put her character of Ariel in like more scenarios to be proactive. Like in the original film, she's like, I just love Eric, isn't he great? Here, there's more to her curiosity. She wants to learn more about the world, wants to explore the world, but of course, her father, King Triton, played by Javier Bardem, doesn't want that to do that, and so that's kind of like a part of her. So she's a little bit more. You could say, hey, she has even more personality. Or at least they attempt. That's what I would say. They attempt to give her more personality. The problem is, and this is one of the biggest flaws of the film, is that so much of this extra of these attempts, so much of this extra screen time, it just kind of feels superfluous, to just pad out the film's, in my opinion, egregious running time of I think it's like 2 hours and 20 minutes or something like that. It adds 60 minutes of more content. Where the original movie was like barely, I think it was just under 9 minutes. So it was 89 minutes long. And now you're adding an extra hour of this film, right? And so my whole thing is like, listen, if you're going to be adding an extra hour, it's like, okay, let's really expand on Ariel. Let's really give her even more of an arc. And it's like they have all these scenes with her and Eric and everyone else, but they still come out to nothing at the end of the day. Like, maybe you could compare, it's like, yeah, you could take all this out and she still end up being the same person as like the original Ariel from the first movie. And again, it's not that Halle Bailey's bad. I think, what she's given, it is what all she has to work with. But it's like a lot of this just feels unnecessary. And it's like, all right, let's get to the the next scene. Let's just move on from this, because it's not working. It's too long. You really do feel the length of this movie. And I think that's a huge mistake. Longer does not always equal better, chat. In a lot of cases, it doesn't equal better. And this movie did not need to be an extra hour long. But, I know I'm here getting the negatives, but we continue on with the positives. Melissa McCarthy, you know what? And who I had a lot of concerns with, chat. I think all of us did. It's like, Melissa McCarthy, she's gonna, because, they're gonna do in the movie, they're gonna make fun of the fact that she's fat and she's gonna trip underwater. They don't do that, thankfully. I will say, Melissa McCarthy is also quite good as Ursula. And though I feel like her cover of Poor Unfortunate Souls doesn't measure up to like Pat Carroll's rendition, Pat Carroll, who recently passed away, who famously voiced Ursula in Little Mermaid and voiced her in numerous other times in which the character popped up throughout Disney's film history. Her whole performance, I think, is very entertaining. She was fun, she was charming, she was consistently sinister and threatening. It's like, yeah, they did a good job with her. Like, because I'm thinking of like a lot of the Disney remake villains, especially the Renaissance era. Like, Scar was terrible. Who did they get? David Oello to bleed Scar? Horrible. I forget who played Gaston. That generic British guy who's in everything. Luke Evans, he's just there. She's like the first one to me that... Oh, Jafar. Oh, my God. I forgot about Jafar. Jafar was awful. Out of all those, Twelve Ejiofor. Thank you. Twelve Ejiofor. David Oello played him in the... Now, remember, David Oello actually did a good Scar. David Oello played him in The Lion Guard. He actually was pretty good. But Twelve Ejiofor did a terrible job as Scar. Really bad. But I think Melissa McCarthy is better than any of them. There's no question about that. It's like, there's a lot of Pat Carroll in her performance, which was nice to see. But she also does her own thing, too. But it wasn't distracting. It didn't feel like, hey, here she's just being Melissa McCarthy. She did a very good job. It's just that her song, Poor Unfortunate Souls, which is one of my favorite Renaissance era Disney songs. It's such a great Poor Unfortunate Soul. It didn't have that oomph to it. Like, Pat Carroll's version. That soul to it, Chad. There was something missing. It wasn't bad, but it was just like, there's something missing here. It's a little off. Which is a consistent thing throughout this movie. But she's I think she's probably my favorite thing about the film, honestly. Even more than Halle Bailey. I was like, wow, you did a really good job. Because every time she came on screen, she has so much personality. Where sometimes Ariel, and this is maybe even the original movie is guilty of this. Like Ariel, because she doesn't have a voice, sometimes is taken away because of the plot. In order to get delayed, Ursula has to take her voice away and kiss the prince in 3 days, etc. There's only so much you can do, right? When you're just kind of going, but like when she's on screen, it's like, oh damn, it's like it feels good. So she's by far the best of the live action Renaissance era remake villains. Which is nice. Another person I actually liked, and I didn't even think about, initially going to see this film. I was like, whatever, they got him. Javier Bardem is King Triton. I actually liked him a lot. He brought a lot to this film. He's kind of a dick, like the original King Triton, but he had a menace to him. Which is not really cool. Like, but also like a love. And you understand like why he is the way he is based on everything. And I think also they changed some of the lore too with him and Ursula, which I thought was like, this is interesting. This is kind of cool. I dig this. I don't want to say what it is, but I like that. And they honestly, they have more for this version of King Triton to do than in the original movie. So I thought that was pretty nice. So I actually was surprised how much I liked his performance. So yeah, obviously the three people I thought did the best job. Melissa McCarthy as Ursula, I thought she was very good, very good. The song didn't hit like the original Pat Carroll version, but her performance I thought was really cool. Halle Bailey I think does a good job for what she's given. Great singing voice. She's definitely the best singer in the movie, and by far. And I actually was surprised by Javier Bardem's performance as King Triton. They definitely expanded on that character. I thought that was cool. The problem is everyone else just feels so shallow. They are shallow, hollow versions of all these other characters. Some iconic, some just they filled the position that they were in, that they were sued for, but. The way they have them here, it's even worse. Like, listen, Prince Eric is not a fantastic character by any stretch of the imagination, okay? He is your template Prince character. He got a little more personality than, than the princes from, like, Beauty and the Beast and Snow White, etc. No doubt. More speaking time, sure. But, man, now this Jonah Hauer King who plays Eric, they don't give him anything to do. His whole thing is like, I want to explore stuff. He just wants to explore stuff, Chad. That's all he wants to do. And his mama, who adopted him, by the way, which is like a weird thing. It's like, oh yeah, he's adopted. It's like, what? Okay. You're like, you can't explore anymore because of something bad that happened. He's like, no, that's his whole thing. That's it. That's all there is to him. and he makes goo eyes at Haley Bailey. That's all they have for him to do. Again, not that Prince Eric in the original movie had like, personality shooting out of his asshole, but this one even less so. And then we get to the side characters that I either found weird, off-putting, or in some cases extraordinarily annoying. They have David Diggs as Sebastian. These designs for some of these characters just don't work. There's no doubt about that. But even the voices, like Sebastian has this like really iconic voice from the original Little Mermaid, right? It's literally been infused into our brains. When we say Sebastian the Crab, we instantly know how he sounds. Here, it just feels like a, I don't know, like an off-Broadway version of Sebastian. It just feels like a lesser version of that character. And it doesn't help that he just doesn't have any, he's a literal fucking crab. That's what he is. That's his look. We're Sebastian the Crab, and it's like that. They give him like an actual human esque face. He's more anthropomorphic. You can see his emotions. This one's just like he's a horrifying looking crab. It's like that doesn't work. And I just don't think the voice they gave him was all that great. And the songs that he performs are infinitely lesser than the original Sebastian. It really just doesn't work. Jacob Tremblay plays Flounder. Flounder is he's a fish. He's straight up just like a dead-eyed looking fish. And, Flounder, who was like, the cowardly but very loyal friend to Ariel, always had her back. I guess it's very much the same way here, but they don't really give much for this character to do. I never really felt a bond with her, with him and Ariel. And that's with all the CGI creatures. One thing I noticed, and again, it's Halle Bailey, because she really literally has to react to fucking tennis balls all around her most of the time. And like her expressions, like when she's talking to them, it just doesn't feel natural. It just doesn't feel real. Whereas when she talks to like an actual person, whether it be, Javier Bardem or Melissa McCarthy or anyone else, like on land, and it's like, okay, there's more to it. But when she's just like, oh yeah, I love you, Flanders, like you don't feel that. And Jacob Tremblay does the voice. He's a very fine actor. He's a good actor. He's the older he gets, I'm interested to see what other project he's gonna pick. He does the best that he can, but the character's just so underwritten in this version. It almost like you couldn't even need him. You could have taken that character out. It would have been fine. And then the last one I want to talk about, at least in terms of the big supporting cast, the rest of the character you don't really care about. Awkwafina as Scuttle is horrible. I guess she's like, okay, so she's not like Scuttle. It was a seagull in the original movie. Here, they changed it to a different bird. I forget what the bird is, but it's a bird that can go underwater and stay underwater for extended periods of time. I was like, okay, because they want that bird to react to Ariel more. Listen, Awkwafina, there's things in which she's been in where I really liked her, like, the one in which she goes back to China I always forget the name of that movie. It's a really good film where she goes back to her whole story of the whole structure of the film, like their grandmother's dying of cancer. The Farewell, thank you. I always forget the name of that movie. They all go back to China because the grandmother's like supposedly dying of cancer, but the grandmother's the only one that doesn't know that. It's a really good movie. It's very sad and very funny too. Great family film. She's great in that. Then she does other movies where she plays up her personality, quote unquote, and that black accent. Like she doesn't have a black accent in this one, but she's just, I don't know. I found the character this incredibly obnoxious, and it just didn't work for me at all. I was just like, you could have just completely cut this character out. We've all would have been better for it. Because they give the character of Scuttle more to do, and it's like, you shouldn't have done this. It's that padding out of the screen time, which is completely unnecessary. And it's like, if you would cut out everything of Scuttle in this movie, you would have had a much better film on your hands, in my opinion. And that's the other thing, Chap, at the end of the day, like, the rest of this film, it just really pales in comparison, to the original. And I mean that. I mean pale in a literal sense. And I noticed this in the market. I talked about this before, like looking at certain scenes and clips and trailers. I don't understand why so much of this movie has been desaturated of color. It's a really weird choice. There's like a gray ocean film, right? It's like some ooze on the camera lens, like constantly, both on land and also especially during the underwater segments. The predominant color for this movie is the color gray. And the aesthetic, so much of this movie, it's just like, why does it look so flat? Why does everything look so goddamn flat? You know, it's a very bizarre choice. And it's really similar to like something like the aesthetic sensibilities of Zack Snyder, who so often desaturates his movies, the color from them, right? Like I mentioned before, the design of the animal characters are photorealistic, and they just come off as gross and disturbing, and there's no warmth from them. There's no personality from them. You know, it's almost like they told the actors, like, listen, you're going to look like a fucking crab, or you're going to look like this seagull-esque bird, but you're going to look like them, right? Just dead-eyed, pure animal instinct. All they want to do is eat, shit, and fuck. That's everything. That's what these animals look like. That's all they do. That's their lives. Like they could care less if their friends live or die. They eat, shit, and fuck. There's no humanity to them. Whereas in the original film, Flounder, Sebastian, Scuttle, they had, despite being animals, yes, they had humanity. These don't. And I feel like because they don't look that way, they're like, well, you know what? Play up your personalities. And when they do that, it just kind of comes off weird. And in a lot of cases, it's obnoxious. The other thing, too, a lot of the music, surprisingly, I thought, well, the thing that's going to work most about this movie is the music. I don't think a lot of the music in this movie is very good. You know, I think Halle Bailey, she gets the best one. She gets the best song, no doubt. I mean, she does a really good job with the aerial song, if you will. But there's some ones that I thought, like, this isn't working. This feels like, again, it's off. It's just off. Like Kiss the Girl, which is this iconic love song from the original film, and had so much, despite taking place at night, had so much color to it, right? It's like a really bad cover of that original song where you get, you know, David Diggs and Awkwafina and some other additional singers coming in. It's like, first of all, Awkwafina can't sing. And it's just like, yeah, this is like really awkward. This is not working. It's supposed to be like this, oh, if these two characters are falling in love with each other, they got to kiss the girl, because if you don't kiss her, then you can't get, you know, you'll be fucked, right? Not good. I was very surprised how bad that was. The worst one, and the thing is, Lin-Manuel Miranda, he does a lot of the music for this movie, and there are some new songs to this film that are not from the original movie. All the new songs are in this I would say are terrible. But by far the worst one is the Awkwafina song, which I hate to keep hating on her, but they have a song called Scuttlebutt, and it's like a rap song, and it comes out of nowhere. And it's like, and it's her rapping. And I'm like, oh, right. I'm just like, oh my God, I'm going to put a rap. Like, it's like when we're like rapping in like a animated movie. It's like, of course they have a rap song. It's like the Chipmunks. It's probably of the remakes, it's the worst song in any of the remakes that I can think of. Like, you know, you have Beauty and the Beast and, like, you know, that one, and then Lion King. I mean, Lion King has some really bad ones. You know, Beyonce's Can You Feel Love Tonight is terrible. Obviously, Troy Ejiofor's, I mean, didn't even attempt to do Be Prepared, is bad. But this one is just like, just doesn't fit, like, at all. It's really bizarre. And I hate to say this, but I think it's time for Lin-Manuel Miranda to kind of take a break. I feel like we've been inundated with so much of his music. And he's done some great things. Obviously, Hamilton was huge. Hamilton's fantastic. But I don't know. It's like a lot of his stuff is just starting to sound the exact same to me. And I'm like, you just feel like this was like a holdover from one of your other musicals. I'm kind of, you know, he's a very talented man, but I'm kind of getting sick of him. And his contributions to this film do not help it in any capacity to me. But Scuttlebutt was awful. Awful. You know, and look, just wrapping it up, you know, because I know I've been really negative. It sounded like really negative. But look, this movie has some good moments, even great moments, you know. Again, I think Melissa McCarthy, Halle Bailey, and Bardem, they do a really good job with what they're given. It surprised me, especially Melissa McCarthy. I was very surprised by Melissa McCarthy. I was like, I really like her. Not great with the Poor Unfortunate Souls cover, but very good throughout the rest of the movie. She's by far the best of the remake villains, no question. But I don't think it never reaches the same heights again, or of course doesn't surpass the original film, right? And my ask is, you need to be as good, if not better, than the original movie. I don't think that's a big tall ask to do. Even with an extra 60 minutes of screen time, it doesn't do anything of note that warrants that additional length. It just sticks out even more. Again, props to Bailey, props to McCarthy, props to Bardem, who are the standouts of the film. But the rest of it feels like, honestly, and this sounds mean, but it's a waste of time. Especially, for me, who is someone who grew up in the original film and, who still loves it to this day. If I were to rate it on a double toast scale, it's a rental. It's a rental, chat. I don't think it's... I wouldn't see it in the theater, honestly. I think that you wait for this on Disney+. Especially because, again, the thing that... If I was going to make a Little Mermaid live-action film, I would fill that thing to the brim with color, and let's get really creative with the coral and all the different designs for the fish and like really make it stand out, just have it be bright. And it's like, why is this so goddamn gray? It's so weird. We're in the Mediterranean. That's the other thing, too. I think in this movie, I believe we're in the Mediterranean. And I'm like, the Mediterranean's filled with a lot of color. Like, why is this not filled with color? Why are we in England? Why does it look like we're in, like, northern England or the UK? It's like, why does the color palette look this way? It's so weird to me. But yeah, chat. Yeah, I mean, it's not as awful as I thought it was originally going to be, like, on a Lion King level, on a Mulan level, and it doesn't, like, Pinocchio. And there's some good things about it that stand out, and I want to give it props. But there's so much about this that does not work. And again, it's just another one of these films. I'm just like, please stop making these. Please just do new movies or adapt or do remakes of films maybe. And I understand why they won't, because there won't probably be any money in it. But do remakes of films that maybe weren't exactly the biggest hits. Something that's like, hey, let's really experiment with this. Like, do something really fun with this. But they're just repeating the same things we already saw in 1989, except not as good. Just not as good. And that's what this film is, Jay. It's not as good as the original movie. It's okay. It's all right. But, overall, a lot of it is a disappointment, with the exception of Bailey, McCarthy, and Bardem. But that's my thoughts on the movie, Jay. What about you guys? A lot of people are seeing this film right now. My theater was filled with a lot of people, chat, no doubt about it. But even then when I was in the theater, there was like a muted response. There was just a muted response. I think... And, everyone's theater experience is different. Not that it was a bad one. The audience was just kind of like, eh. I was like, eh. And there was a lot of kids in my audience. And, it just, I felt like, these kids had seen the original Little Mermaid maybe. And I felt like some of them were bored. It's like, why is this movie so goddamn, it's 60 minutes. And I'm just like, some of these scenes why are they even here? I feel like these kids are bored. But again, I can imagine other kids going to see this and they'll end up maybe loving it. Maybe that'll be their Little Mermaid for their generation, but not for me. Not for me, Chad. I hope everyone enjoyed the video, and I want to take the time to tell you about my Patreon, Class in the Glass, which offers hundreds of film commentaries and video reactions to numerous movies, TV shows, and cartoons. If you're a fan of shows like Batman the Animated Series and Avatar: The Last Airbender, or films like Aliens and Raiders of the Lost Ark, my Patreon is the platform for you. Currently, I'm doing a subathon to reach 75 subs on the platform. If we hit 75 subs, we'll be able to start voting on the next edited YouTube reaction, which will include actual clips and scenes from the movies and shows I comment over. Choose from such films as Fire and Ice, Masters of the Universe, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers the movie, Mortal Kombat Annihilation, or Spawn. Subscribing at any tier level is appreciated, and feel free to give feedback at any time. Thank you again for watching the video, and see you next time.